one of the most fundamental differences between Mormonism and traditional biblical Christianity is the nature of God. And we could spend a lot of time talking about the differences between the two different teachings about God. But what I want to do is explore that in terms of a story. And so we're going to talk about your story today a little bit, and how you discovered who God really is and what he's like. And so tell us maybe one of the things that you thought or you experienced about God when you were LDS.
Okay. Well, from a very early age, I remember being taught at church and at home that God was once a man on a planet. And part of this, the gospel plan was that we would become gods one day.
Sure.
I realize that the church now is kind of moving away from that, but it doesn't change the fact that that's a core belief.
Right. They're moving away maybe how they talk about that, but I
Right.
think it's still at the heart of the worldview.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So from a young age, you think, well, he was just like me. He was just a person on a planet who messed up and was righteous enough and had a savior and grace kicked in. And now he's been rewarded with his own planet and
Right.
then literally birthed us. I think there's a lack of reverence in that now that I understand who God is, really. And it's taking me a long time to it'll probably take me a lifetime
Sure.
to start to grasp that.
Sure.
But I think that shaping who God is that way takes away a lot.
Yeah. So how does God look to you now differently compared to that, based on what you've learned in the Bible?
Okay. Well, I think the number one thing for me is that the word the Bible uses most to describe God is holy.
Yeah.
Right? Not God is love, not all these things, just holiness. To understand that, and to understand that he's literally your creator and breathes us into existence. I think it's just night and day difference. I don't think I was disrespectful. I thought I honored God by going to the temple and things like that. But knowing now how holy he is and that he is creator, I think it lends itself to, I guess I've had to reevaluate everything about who I am and who he is to even begin to comprehend that holiness. That's a hard topic to talk about because I'm still a baby and learning about it. But I can tell you that going from thinking that he was just a guy on a planet and that one day I will also do the same thing, I think it takes away from really the relationship he wants to have with us, which is adoption and rescue.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's really well put. How about what's another one? Another maybe misconception you had about God and Jesus when you were growing up?
I thought that God was really mean because we gave him human characteristics.
Right.
So I thought maybe on any given day he could be moody. He could. Right. I think because you put humanness into him.
Right. This is how you experience your own parents or your own other figures. Yeah.
So maybe some prayer was begging, where other ones weren't. And so depending on that, it was different. I did think he was mean, and some of that might have been, I'm not sure exactly where that came from. Old Testament God is mean. New Testament Jesus is really kind and nice.
Right.
It's taken me a while to reconcile the fact that they are one and the same, and that God wanted to rescue us from page one.
Right.
He loved us from page
God
one.
loved us from page one, and when we see his wrath in the Old Testament, it's because he hates sin, and so not because he hates us.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
So this whole idea that because God is an exalted man, he's got these human characteristics. So maybe he's fickle, maybe he's mean. Right. So that's interesting. Yeah. So what have you learned about God now that would counter that?
Again, going back to that word holy, and understanding that he knows everything that has happened and that is to come, and understanding that he's not only the creator, he's the only God that ever was.
Right.
I think I personally have found 28 scriptures so far speaking into I'm the only God. I know of no other God.
Yeah.
I mean, Ross, he couldn't be more crystal clear,
it's very clear
on that point for a reason. He knows of none to come, and I think taking that away makes it very difficult to kind of navigate even beginning a relationship with him.
Right.
But he's been very clear on that point.
Yeah.
When I realized that, I think it's very easy it was easy for me to let him take that role and give myself to let him be Lord of my life.
Yeah.
I'm no longer in control of my salvation. God has called me, I'm responding. And even in heaven, I I will not stand there on Judgment Day now and say, well, I did all this, this, and this, and I hope that your grace kicks in and that Mormonism's the right thing. Now I realize I stand there and say, nothing. You created me. I tried to live my life for you. But at the end of the day, Jesus stands between us. It's what he did. And I did not have that view before.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And in heaven, I thought, I would be judged through every bishop I've had. Joseph Smith had to sign my certificate. I mean, at some point, God's there, but it wasn't me and God.
Let's expand on that for just a second. Oh, and by the way, that some of the verses that she's mentioning about the nature of God, we'll have them in the article below, so you can look those up for yourself. But let's expand on that idea about heaven. You stand before God with all these mediators. Even when you're in heaven, when we get to be in heaven, right? God is like on his planet kind of, and we're kind of on our own. And I mean, what is it really like? I mean, maybe what did you experience or what did you think back in the day, and then what have you learned?
Okay. Well, I thought that when we died, and there's a whole part on these different levels in spirit prison and spirit paradise and things like that. But at the end of the day, the goal isn't to be worshiping God with fellow believers. The goal was to get your own planet, to be able to create. And I guess I would be having babies for eternity.
Who might worship you.
Yeah, who were going to worship me. And it sounds so egotistical now, but I really did think that. I guess there is some pride in that. One day people will worship me, and it's just totally different now. And I remember thinking a little bit like, gosh, I don't get to create universes anymore, type thing, not understanding in the slightest
what it's really there
what it's really going to be like. So I think I did not plan on being in God's presence. He has his own planet and his own world, and so I'm going to have mine too. I'm not sure how often our paths would have crossed. Same with Jesus. Has his wife's going to go on his planet. It's just not what the Bible tells us.
Which is what? What does the Bible tell us?
It tells us that we will be in his presence forever, and that is the greatest gift we can be given, that he adopted us in, and we get to live in his mansion and worship. And I just can't imagine the joy that it talks about, and that is so right. That's what heaven is.
Right on. Amen. That's so encouraging. Thank you for sharing that with us. I hope you can see that the question, who is God, is not just an academic question. It's not just a question that's out there in theological land, but it's so personal and so real, and it affects our emotions, it affects our lives every day. And so I really encourage you to grapple with this question, who is God? We have some questions below that will help you to grapple with that. We encourage you to take some time to think that through. And thanks for watching today.